Hello, everybody. Nice to see you all. I'm really conscious of the fact that in a day of positivity and positive discussions, the topic that I'm going to be talking to you about is far from positive, but I will try and remain as upbeat as I can.
Don't worry, we're talking about everything today.
So the Diane Oxberry Trust was formed just over 2 years ago, actually, in the wake of the death of a friend of mine, but equally a well-known face and personality around the northwest of England. Diane Oxberry was a BBC broadcaster. She was a member of the Northwest Tonight team for the past 20 odd years. Before that, she'd had life in the BBC in London, where she'd worked on the Simon Mayo breakfast show, where she was the voice of forgiveness or not forgiveness, depending on where on her moral compass she fell. But she was she was well loved. She was loved by the people of the Northwest. She was in the dining rooms or the living rooms or wherever every evening, and was a really far beyond the scope of the programme. It took everybody, blindsided everybody by the response to her death, untimely death, sudden death, 2 years ago, because she was such a down-to-earth, no-nonsense Geordie with a wicked sense of humour, but full of life. And I think the thing is, she was 51 years old. She had a young family and a husband, and who she lived for, and her dogs and her horses and her cats and everything else. But she lived life absolutely to the full. And literally 6 weeks before she died, she'd walked 60 miles, pushing a bed for Pudsey, raising money for children in need. She was an absolute inferno, not just a ball, an inferno of energy. She was always busy, always setting to, always positive. But she was blindsided, literally blindsided. She started to feel unwell, dismissed it, eventually was persuaded to go and see a GP. Eventually she got a diagnosis, and between diagnosis and her dying was 10 days. And so it was unbelievably swift, and it was only for the last 2 of those days that she was even aware that this was the likely outcome. So she had no chance to do anything, and it threw her friends, her family, and all of us into this world that we just didn't even know existed. How is this a thing? How can this happen? How can this happen to a healthy, vibrant 51-year-old out of nowhere? And the more we learned, the more we discovered is actually her story is fairly typical. And it's because ovarian cancer is what they call we used to call the silent assassin, but it kind of whispers at you, because the highest risk group are those aged 45 plus, 50 plus. And it's women going through their menopause quite often, or perimenopausal, whose bodies are doing weird things. They just don't know which way's up. If you have, as I have, and I'm in the middle of, you just know your body's acting very, very strangely. In fact, it was on Diane's advice that I started taking HRT. But so you kind of, there are all sorts of things you just kind of write off as, oh, well, that's my time of life, that's why that happens, or I'm getting older, or I've had kids, that's going to happen as you get older. And you write them off, the symptoms, because they're very innocuous. None of them add up to anything particularly, but you don't even know you're in the zone for this disease, because it's really not common. It's really a mystery to most people. They're just, well, it's kind of there in the distance, don't know anything about it, don't know what the symptoms are. But more worryingly, most women think, well, it's picked up by my smear test, surely, like everything is. I'll get told if there's any problem. Well, that's the first shocker that we discovered, is it's not picked up by your smear test. So the only way you know you've got ovarian cancer is that you do the detective work. You join up the dots and you figure out what the symptoms are, because it is one of the least common of the gynecological cancers, but the most deadly. So it sneaks up on you. It's really innocuous, these symptoms, which means that you delay going to the doctor to get diagnosed, which is, as a result, why we've got one of the poorest outcomes in this country, in the developed world, because there just isn't the awareness out there of what even that you should be looking out for stuff, let alone what you should be looking out for. So the first thing is, it's not picked up, it's down to you. Second thing is, it can affect women at any age, but predominantly it's women over 40. The symptoms are very innocuous. You're a bit bloated, you're in a bit of discomfort, you need to go to the toilet more often, you maybe have lost some appetite, you maybe lost or gained weight. It may be that you,
usual, isn't it? That's just
exactly, you may
signs,
be a
yeah.
bit constipated, or the opposite. You've got. So there's all these really, you're not going to be fretting about any of them, but they don't go away.
Right.
The symptoms themselves, there's a whole variety. Pain in sex is one of them, but they could be a myriad of things, which is one of the reasons why, when you go, quite often women presenting at their GPs who've even joined the dots and thinking, actually, there's something, I need to go and get this sorted out. All too often it's dismissed as IBS or PMS or one of a range of other things. And it's by a process of elimination that the GP finally, ultimately kind of gets to the point, oh, maybe we should send you for a blood test. Maybe we should
And
send
that happens quite a lot, that we've
Yeah.
had a few of our diamonds who've been misdiagnosed and been going back and going back and going back. And eventually, they were told it was IBS, they were told all these different things, and they've obviously got ovarian, and it's crazy. It is absolutely crazy. You do need to push for your scans and things like that, don't you?
You do. Well, and it's a strange thing as well. You do need to push, but even to know to go, because as women, just being generalizing here, but you tend to put yourself at the bottom of the pile. And certainly as you get older, you've got family, you've got obligations, you've just like, yeah, I'll come. Now, add a pandemic on top of it, and it's just like, well, you're just not going. And I think we all know there's a bit of a time bomb coming on that.
Mm.
So it's this whole world that revealed itself in the aftermath of Diane's death, of who knew that it wasn't picked up on your test, who knew what the symptoms were, because we didn't, who knew which women were even in the zone for it. So if you've got a family history or hereditary, some types of hereditary breast cancer, you're more at risk. If you've had endometriosis, you're more at risk. The higher the age group you are, definitely the more at risk. So as a trust, we figured, after the initial year, which was, we had this unbelievable response from the public, and we were able to do some things and help in some areas. We got back together again after that first year and said, okay, so where do we go from here? And I think for all the reasons I've just described, we felt that, well, the biggest single thing we can do is lift the lid on this and start talking about it. And there are a number of ways in which we can talk about it. We can talk about it through our social channels. But for us, peer-to-peer advocacy, woman to woman, talking to other women talking to other women in a way that they feel relaxed about and can actually get real about the symptoms and share them. Because I think if we could rewind the clock, the one thing we'd want to do as friends is not just let Diane have carried on saying, the fact she needed to keep going to the loo, the fact that, she felt bloated a lot, so all those things. We wouldn't have said, oh, not to worry, time of life. We would have said, these are ticking boxes here, Diane. Get yourself off to your GP. Because women don't. They put themselves bottom of the queue, and quite often they feel uncomfortable about talking about these things. There is nothing your GP won't have seen or discussed. That bit's fine. But they do feel shy about coming forward. And then when they go to the GP, it's like their word is law. And you don't feel qualified to push back. You don't feel like, actually, should I, because we all do it. We all say, okay, I'll do that then. I'll go and try that.
Yes, doc.
And the clock is ticking. It just keeps ticking, which is why 30% of women with ovarian cancer enter the system as an emergency. Wow. Because they've either been diagnosed with something else, or they're just putting it off. So they're entering as emergencies, and there is a direct correlation between late presentation and your outcome.
Right.
But it's challenging, because who would gather these symptoms together? So our mission, as I say, is to spread the word to as many women as possible, to just raise awareness, let them know this is something that they should be looking out for. And actually, in this world of lack of understanding, the person standing between you and a positive outcome, if you have got this, is you.
Yeah,
it'll be down to you. It'll be down to you pushing. It'll be down to you going to your GP. It'll be down to you joining the dots. It'll be down to you just being even aware that this is something you should be looking out for. So, far rather we direct thousands of women to the GPs only to find they have got IBS or they have got PMS, but to catch those one or two that actually it's something slightly more serious. So that's our mission. And so to start that ball rolling, because we're a tiny charity, we've only been going 2 years. Every penny we get, we rely on for fundraising for. So there's all of that side of things. So we need to work efficiently and effectively. So we try and do as much as we can via our social media channels. And what we do when we talk to groups is we ask, look, can you just start following us? Because we will be putting messaging out that you can share with other women. But we ask everybody that follows us, if you can ask 3 of your mates to do the same, then we get that spread, we get that viral reach a lot faster. And it's just dead simple. We call it the power of 3. If you want to find out more, just look at our website, keep following us on social media.
We put your links in the chat.
Brilliant. So when I sent it to you, I just spotted a typo in the one I sent you. So,
oh, really?
So, our website is DianeOxberryTrust.org, not Diane Oxberry Trusty Wusty or whatever I sent. Very strange.
No, that's no problem.
But yeah, sorry.
I was just going to say to you then, so there's no actual screening test for ovarian cancer at all. That is shocking. That is shocking. So what would the doctor do? Do you know when you go to the doctors? Does he just have a feel around and go, oh yeah, that's a bit swollen, maybe we should send you for a scan? Is it one of those, do you know? Well,
my fellow trustee Siobhan will be far more qualified than I to comment on what actually happens, and its individual GPs will be different. But there are 2 things generally that they do. They can send you off for a CA125 blood test, right, which shows whether you've got raised levels, or send you for a scan, which will show things up. So those are the 2 most general things that they will do if they're concerned. But because the symptoms are, so it's, I think the key, the advice we've been given is that the key thing to look out for is these symptoms don't come and go.
Yeah.
They're pretty static by the time they're there. But it's just go, and you know, it costs, apparently, again, I could be wrong, but I've been quoted 12 quid for a CA125 test. So you're not draining the NHS. It's definitely worthwhile to put your mind at rest, because that will be one of the indicators. But again, you have to be sent for it, I suppose. So it's just even having that conversation, or even raising with your GP that I am a bit concerned about this, because raising awareness with practice nurses and GPs is another side to what we're trying to do, because it's not front of mind. There are many other things that could be ahead of it and are more likely to be ahead of it, because as I say, this is not common, but it is deadly. So it's just keeping that front of mind with GPs as well. So even if women, when they go and present, say, look, this is just a bit worrying me that this is what it could be. And I think they'll be as keen to put your mind at rest by sending you for the test as not, really.
I think it's really important as well, because as you say, it is a ticking time bomb. But if you've got to wait to see if this is something that goes away and comes back, there's a bit of time. Then you go to the doctors and he says, oh yeah, it's IBS, or it's this, that. Come back in a week or 2, we'll see if it's gone. It's still more time, isn't it? It's not good. They need to come up with some kind of test for it.
Like, well, there are group. I mean, as we have discovered with the vaccine, you have to throw a lot of money at research.
Yeah.
And it takes years. And there are well-established bodies that are doing that. Professor Ahmed Ahmed at Oxford University is one of them, that they are looking at the sort of various genetic markers, because it's not easy and it will take time. But in the meantime, as you say, the clock ticks. Every year that goes past, that's more women diagnosed. It's got a mortality rate of 63%. So the more that we can do, the faster we can do it to get the word out there. Yes, those things might be happening, but our job as a trust is very single-minded. We just want to talk to women and just make them aware. And it's staggering. There was a piece of research in the States that said 1/3 of women believe that this would be picked up by their smear test. That's not our experience. Most of the groups we talk to, it's virtually everybody on the call.
Well, I'm one of them.
Yeah, and me.
Yeah.
I think there's a massive assumption that this is one of the things covered, so people don't even look for it.
Yeah, I agree. And Laura's put a nice comment in the chat that is actually true. It's like, how does this compare to the price of a smear? You know, the blood test or a mammogram. You know, for the size of it, £12, if that's what you're saying is right. Yeah. It's got to be cheaper than having a smear and having a mammogram.
Well, on that point, even what we're finding is smear tests are at an all-time low. Nothing to do with the pandemic. It predates the pandemic. And the biggest group who are avoiding it are women in their 20s, because there's a whole generation growing up who are very, very body conscious, probably to do with peer pressure and social media. And they just feel too embarrassed to go. So there's a third of women in their 20s aren't attending their smear test appointments. So if that is an indication of women being reluctant to come forward with things, there's a whole generational shift to make it even harder. So whilst we are predominantly trying to focus our efforts to women who are slightly older, the earlier we can get them, the better. Because if we can encourage them to change their mindset now and see the importance of self-care and getting checked out, whether that is, you know, whatever it is, whether it's making sure you're going for your mammograms or you're going for your regular smear tests, or, you know, but this generation coming up are more avoidant of these things because they just feel they don't want to put their body on show.
Yeah, I agree. I think as well, what might be contributing to that is a lot of these early 20-year-olds and stuff, they've had the HPV jab at school, so they automatically think they'll be okay. They don't need smears or anything like that. But as you say, ovarian isn't picked up with a smear, so if they're not going at all, they're not even have a blindfold on.
They're just not even. Actually, it's funny you say. My daughter had her first smear test. I should probably more oversharing there on her behalf. But and she's 25, and she her GP said, you are the first of the generation that are coming through with this vaccine. So it will be interesting to see as we start monitoring you now what the effects are, because they don't know. They know, they hope, but they don't know. So rather that, it's really important that you know, even more so I suppose, that they are going, because who knows.
Oh my goodness me. That's crazy. That is crazy. And as you say, it's like we need to normalize these things and make people see that, especially with smears, they need to be normalized, but also with the ovarian side of things. I mean, I'll be straight with you. I wouldn't have thought. You probably put me on a bit of a panic now. I'm only joking. But like, I get bloated quite a lot. I've now stopped eating bread and I've stopped eating certain things, and I'm not bloated anymore. But that bloatedness people accept as normal. It's just my age. I'm still recovering after my last baby 20 odd years ago. Things like that, you know. People do put it down to other things, and I think you're right. Awareness does need to be lifted on ovarian, definitely, and the symptoms, I mean, and not to be palmed off by the doctors.
Well, one of the risk factors is endometriosis, and there does seem to be a movement at the minute, whether it's awareness about endometriosis and an honesty about the impact that has on women's lives, whether it's menstruation, whether it's incontinence, whether there does seem to be a stripping away of taboos, where even brands are trying to normalize conversations around these topics. And if gynecological health can be included in that discussion, so that women are increasingly open. Menopause is another one that seems to, you know, it's being taken more and more into the mainstream as a conversation. And I think the pandemic has helped bring a lot of that transparency and open dialogue. But it's all very well, I'm going to say something non-PC now, I think it's all very well to imagine that Guardian readers in Islington are probably, you know, that's fine, and that's where the media focuses these stories. Actually, it's not your average woman. It's not your Asda mum. There is still a reluctance amongst most women to talk about these things, but because there's a bit of a media blitz, doesn't mean to say that's translating into most people's lives. And I think that's why I think woman to woman, if we can be doing more there, not through media channels and things so much, although we are doing our own channels, but actually having the conversation, the conversation. And if everybody we talk to then has conversations with their daughters, with their sisters, with their mums, with their friends, and actually start saying, oh, you know, I found this out, did you know? The chances are, and we know that this is happening, because we know that when from the work that we're doing, we're getting feedback to say, actually, because of the conversation that we had, a friend of mine went went, and actually we're starting to build a bank of stories now.
Yeah.
And I think we can see the change that just a conversation is having. Sometimes it's just that boot up the bum to say to someone who's been putting something off, you know, to make today the day you go, make today the day you make the phone call.
Just do it. Just
do it.
Yeah.
Don't put it off. Eat the frog, as they say. Go and do it. Rule it out.
Well, Laura's put a comment in the chat saying, how does the cost of the blood test compare to that of a smear? And then she says, or a mammogram. Just think if you could have a blood test for ovarian cancer at the same time as your mammogram, given they start at the age of 42. But I think maybe the blood test with the first smear.
Yeah.
You know, get it younger, because I'm sure it's not a restricted age group. It's just that it's more likely in certain age groups, isn't it? So yeah, if it was a smear and a blood test, that would probably work out better, wouldn't it?
It would. But you've
Definitely
got to
with
ask, that's the thing, yeah.
By mammogram age, it definitely should be happening.
Yeah.
But, you know, we could start
exactly.
Maybe this is something the Diane Oxberry Trust and Sam's Diamonds can work on together, and we can get go on a mission and a campaign going and see if we can get
Get yourself tested. Which point the GP surgeries go, no, our budget.
Doubled up team coming and knocking on their door. I mean, even if it was like making sure that you had leaflets in all the doctor's surgeries, getting in touch with the CCGs and seeing if you can get it in that way, you know, every little bit. But I think the face-to-face conversation needs to be happening. I mean, I'm doing that a lot with my daughters at the moment. I mean, we're just on the periods stage, do you know what I mean? But we're just talking openly about it, and I want to keep it like that.
Yeah.
And I think that's something maybe a lot of people. Look at the dog in the background. He's getting cozy again. Sorry, he's just so cute. I've been watching him. But yeah, maybe just making it more of an open conversation, getting into schools, talking about it. You know, it's just trying to find that line, isn't it, to talk about it, as well as not scare the life out of everyone.
Exactly. I mean, that's the thing that we're conscious about, because even you know, it is the stats on it aren't marvelous, but it's the least common. So it's, you know, it's well, least common, but the outcomes haven't changed, haven't improved in 20 years, and that's because nobody's talking about it. So if we can just do that, if that's all we can do, then that's a real step in the right direction. We might not be able to reinvent the world. We might not be able to, you know, magic up a test, and those things may take years and years. But even if you know, just generally awareness from day one, that in the unlikely event that this is going to enter your world, just to be prepared for it, because it is down to us as individuals at the minute to be the guardians at the gate. And
it's just making sure people aren't walking around with blinkers on thinking it'll never happen to me, because that happens in breast cancer, that happens in all women's cancers as well, which is why we have campaigns to raise awareness and things now, do like first of the month check for a lump, things like that. It all counts, it all matters. And even if you can sort of save one person's life from something you've done, it's huge, isn't it? It's absolutely huge,
because it's not just one person's life, it's the people they leave behind. That's the thing, and that's the daily reality of these for these women. It
doesn't have to happen either, does it? Do you know what I mean? It doesn't have to happen. Let me just see if there's anything on here. Let me see. I was just trying to see if there's any questions that we hadn't actually answered that we wanted, but I think we have. I'm just wondering whether people have got any questions that they would like to ask you. Obviously, we can't answer medical questions because we're not medically trained. But if you've got any questions, please put them in the chat or unmute yourself and just ask away. If we can answer them, we will. I'm just trying to see if anything's coming up. So how long have you actually worked? Have you worked from the very beginning of the 2 years for the Diane Oxberry Trust?
We basically, there are a group of us. The founder is Diane's husband, Ian, and he basically responded. We came out with the memorial from Manchester Cathedral. He said, right, and there was a group of us around the table, her friends, and with a particular, each of us have got particular skills, and we got together as a group of trustees, all of us trying to do this whilst doing our day jobs. So in between, as I think is common with a lot of charities, we don't have any any permanent staff. We don't have, it's just us trying to do as much as we can over weekends and evenings, and trying to talk to as many groups like this in our lunch hours or whatever it is we're doing it. And the creation, it's a terrible thing to say, but the explosion of access to Teams, Zoom, WhatsApp, all of that has been really opened up a whole world for us. But in a similar way, it's also not, we're not been able to talk to GPs because nobody's going to GP surgeries. The access to there, but as that opens up in the coming months, we will be, and people start going back to their GP surgeries, we'll be doing more. But our focus is talking to women, finding them wherever they are and having a chat at a bus stop, in the Sainsbury's queue, wherever you are, just have a chat.
Safe.
Exactly.
We're coming for you.
Yeah.
Oh,
it is a thing.
It's mad, isn't it? So what are the typical symptoms of ovarian?
There are probably 4 to 6 main symptoms, which are the things that we've talked about: needing to go to the loo more often, uncomfortable, bit of pain, bloating, loss of appetite. Those are the most common things. But equally, there's a massive secondary list of not constipated or explosive or painful sex, or I mean, there's just a range.
They're all the same symptoms for bowel cancer as well, aren't they? So all these things need to be looked at. You can't ignore them.
Well, one of the things, I don't know exactly the details, but one of the impacts of ovarian cancer is it does affect your bowel. And so you can get blockages, and so it's all mixed together. So the things that you would expect through PMS or endometriosis, that real discomfort, but equally the things that you would expect as you're getting older or going through menopause, like you've got to keep going to the loo, you need a pee all the time, you've got to keep, it's 10 minutes between toilets, kind of thing. And you're just very aware of that. But those are things that you would, more likely than not say, well, I'm of an age, this is happening. Let me do my pelvic floor exercise.
Don't make me laugh too much.
Yeah, exactly. So there are, those are the main ones. But if you go to our website, we've got a whole page on symptoms, primary, secondary, tertiary, things to look out for. But it's the sort of thing you look back on and think, I remember that, because you just, when they say keep food diaries and things, it's because you don't spot patterns when you're going through it. It's only when you look back, but it's just trying to make a mental note of things. And that comes from a discipline that you learn earlier, which is tune into your sense of self and your sense of well-being. Nobody should know your body better than you. And so it's just tuning into what normal is like for you, even at a point of change like the menopause, what the new normal is, or other things that are changing that you just sort of, they just sneak up on you, and then before you know it, they're established. So it's just being more attuned, finely tuned in, so that you get a sense of what's right and what's not right with your body.
And as you say, it's symptoms that don't go away or don't calm down. They're there. Because I remember when I went through my cancer diagnosis afterwards, once they discharged me, every time I had a headache for more than 10 minutes, I was like, oh, it's back. So you can't get yourself into that state. And the doctor turned around to me and said, Sam, if it doesn't go away and it's there for a week or two,
that's when you should come.
Come and see me then. It's exactly the same thing. Otherwise, you can drive yourself mental, can't you?
Yeah, you can.
If you've been suffering with these symptoms for a while, now it's time to go and push the doctor and go, right, Mr. or Mrs., get me sorted now. I have rights. This is my body. I want this looked at right now.
Or even not as, you don't even need to be, you can be as assertive as you like, but actually even just to ask the question, just say, I'm worried about this. I'm aware that these are the symptoms of, and half the time the person you're speaking to is, I hadn't thought about that, but yes, we can rule that out for you if you like.
So you can prove that you know what you're talking about, so don't ignore me.
Exactly.
That's good. Exactly. Good. Well, listen, it's been absolutely amazing having you on.
It's been lovely to chat. Thanks for the opportunity.
And we've raised the awareness of the Diane Oxberry Trust. If you want to go to the website, it is in the chat. all
Yeah.
your symptoms in there. If you
Yeah.
can support them in any way, that is great. We're looking at working together.
Fundraising pages. Yeah, that's brilliant.
Yeah, we'll look at working together with you a little bit more. I'm serious about that campaign. I think we need to do something maybe together and get that going.
Brilliant.
Yeah, thank you so much for giving us your time.
Listen, thank you for inviting me. This is great.
Anytime. We've got we'll do something with the diamonds, a proper workshop with the diamonds as well, where we'll get them all into a room when we're allowed and come down and give them a talk. Because I know a lot of the side effects to some of the treatments that we have to be on for breast cancer can cause problems down there as well. So it's good to know the stuff that you're telling them. We are going to be putting this on our YouTube channel, so other people will have access to it. So hopefully we can raise awareness of the trust, and we can help you step it up and, you know, have a greater platform, so to speak.
That would be brilliant. Sorry, I'm just going to shut the door.
No, that's all right. That's all right. No problem at all.
So yes, that would be great. Anything. And again, it's following us and talking to your friends. It's the biggest thing that comes out of this is everybody that's on this call today has a conversation with a female member of their family and raises their awareness.